everyone, and welcome back to my channel True Crime and Trials, where I discuss true crime and trials. My name's Lindsay and this is the next instalment of the Robert Durst trial, and it's the defence's opening statement. And he begins by saying, he said it once and he will say it again, Bob Durst did not kill Susan Berman and he doesn't know who did. The lack of evidence is what Mr. De Guerin will be talking about. Bob Durst had no motive and nothing to gain by the death of Susan Berman. There is no evidence to show that Bob Durst spoke to Susan in the time between Susan's disappearance and the phone call to the Dean. The first evidence of any contact between Bob and Susan was on the 6th of February after the call to Dean. So he says there are four main characters in this 40-year-long story: Bob, Susan, Kathy and Morris. So now Mr. De Guerin goes back over Bob's childhood. He has 3 siblings and of course his mother died by either falling or jumping to her death, and Bob witnessed that whole event. And as for his brother Thomas, Mr. De Guerin says that Thomas still resents and hates Bob to this day because of the whole incident of when Bob trapped him in the revolving door. Do you all remember that? Bob trapped Thomas in a revolving door and it just kept going round, and he found it absolutely hilarious. I'm sure no one can hold on to resentment and hate that much over something like that, so I personally believe there's way more to it. He says Bob and Susan were never lovers, they were just close friends. Bob actually helped his wife Kathy get into medical school, and he was proud of her for going to medical school. But evidence will show that Kathy had difficulty in medical school. Kathy had a drug problem. Her friends and family will say they were worried about her. She was using cocaine. So now De Guerin shows an excerpt from her medical school record that says Miss Durst was unable to attend a large part of the clerkship, mostly due to ill health. So I have suggested to her that she should repeat the entire clerkship at a suitable time. I am also disappointed at her lack of responsibility in not returning the books she borrowed from our library in spite of repeated reminders. So at the same time as things were worsening at medical school for Kathy, she and Bob were also having difficulties. Kathy wanted kids, but Bob didn't. And she was still using drugs, and Bob was in fact smoking marijuana. On the 17th, I haven't wrote a month for this. Don't know what month it was, I've just wrote 17th, 1981. Bob wrote a letter to Kathy to tell her he would move out of their apartment in the city. Talks about Kathy having her own space and all this stuff, and here's a picture. So Labour Day of 1981, Bob and Kathy moved back in together, try and give it another go, and that's when they got the penthouse in the city. Now the defence starts saying that Kathy disappeared on the 1st of February, not the 31st of January. They say that it was indeed Kathy that called the Dean's office, and Kathy told him that she was not going to her clerkship that day because she was sick, because she spoke about details that only would be known by Kathy, so that piqued my interest a bit. And then there's a bit of toing and froing. I mean, the whole trial is very, very entertaining, but De Guerin tries sneaking in evidence, you know, flashing it up on the screen, and it's obviously not being allowed to start with, but he keeps trying. There is no evidence to say that Kathy Durst was murdered. There was no evidence at the house in South Salem and no evidence at the apartment. No blood, DNA, no murder weapon of any kind it is and was a mystery. So in November of 2000, Janine Pirro reopens the investigation of Kathy's disappearance, 18 years after Kathy disappeared. This was leaked to the media, and the media went crazy with it. The investigation was reopened based on a bogus tip of a criminal informant and an interest of Janine's. So the defence is saying she did this for publicity, and with all this going on, Bob decided to run because he was scared, and he ran to Galveston. And then the defence slip in that Bob has been diagnosed with a more mild form of Asperger's. So the defence says that Susan was murdered either on the night of the 22nd of December or on the early morning of the 23rd. The prosecution have got late 23rd, early 24th. It just seems, it wasn't a shock that the defence would go for a day before. So when Bob came to California, he didn't hide that fact. Susan and others were expecting him to be there for Christmas. And when he got to Susan's, obviously, the day of her murder, when he got there, he walked in through the back door. He saw her dead. He freaked out. The phone had been disconnected and Bob left. But before he did, he wrote the anonymous cadaver note and sent it to the police. And again says that they found Susan's body before they got the note and not the other way around, like Mr. Lewin said. He explains that Robert wrote that note because he was afraid that Susan's body would be there for days and nobody would find her. And then after that, he went back to New York. So they then go through a list of the lack of forensic evidence. He says there's not a fingerprint of Bob, not a handprint of Bob, no DNA, no blood, no fibres from Bob, no gun was found, no shoe prints in blood, nothing in his car, no fingernail scrapings were done on Susan, and the police also didn't do a sexual assault exam. And then he goes into more of Susan's character and the bad side of her, and he says lots of people that knew Susan will tell you that she lied a lot. She liked to make up stories, and she lied when she told Bob she had been contacted by authorities. And the defence says she also lied about calling Kathy's medical school. So, the evidence that's going to be put forward from both sides, is going to be extremely interesting. There's total contrast between them both. So, the jury, it depends on what evidence either side has. Most of Susan's friends didn't believe the things she said. So, an attack on Susan, she was, a liar, she liked to make up stories, and most of her friends didn't believe a word. So another of the defence's arguments is that the police didn't find any evidence in Susan's murder, nor for Kathy's disappearance, but there was hundreds of clues when Maurice Black was killed. The fact that, I don't know, it's hard, but, Maurice Black, Kathy disappeared. We don't know how she died. Susan was a shot to the back of the head. Yes, Maurice was shot, but then Bob dismembered him. So, you can look at it both ways. Doing that to Maurice Black, yeah, he's capable of murder, but, he did it. Susan and Maurice were gunshots. So there's two similarities there. But if Bob killed Susan, he just left her there. Whereas with Maurice Black, he dismembered him and then dumped him. So there's pros and cons to either side. We don't know. we don't know. There's a lot of evidence, you know, with the moving of a body list, the cadaver note, you know, I mean, he's a sneaky swine. Don't know, it's going to be very, very interesting. Bob Durst didn't kill Susan Berman, and he doesn't know who did. So there we go. We shall see. I mean, this trial's got another 4 or 5 months to go yet, so we're going to get a ton of information. So I don't envy the jury at all, because they are going to be sat there for a very, very long time. As entertaining as it is, it can get very annoying. It does get very childish, but they are going to be inundated with information. So there we go. I'll be back with more in the next video. So until then, bye for now.